Hello, happy Wednesday. Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Build a Business Case for Contract Lifecycle Management. I'm Ellen Nendorf. I'm founder of LPM Executive, a boutique law department operations firm where I work with corporate legal departments really to help them improve the legal function. And that's everything from process improvement to leveraging technology, really helping the law department get the resources they need to be most effective. Joining me today is Danielle Haugland, Director of Global Alliance at Agiloft. Welcome, Danielle. Please share a little bit about yourself.
Sure thing, Ellen. Thanks so much for having me. As Ellen mentioned, I am the Global Alliance Director, and I am responsible for forging and developing strategic relationships with large service providers in order to provide an end-to-end CLM solution to our joint clients. I spent most of my career on the services side of legal, as a practicing attorney for 15 years, transitioning to selling managed legal services, and in that role, consulting with corporate law departments and law firms to bring innovative solutions to life, particularly around contract lifecycle management, and to deliver on the promise of true digital transformation.
Awesome. Well, welcome. So we're here today. It's November. We are 8 months, almost 9 months into a global pandemic, 8 months into everyone really working from home in a way that they had not before. And perhaps for many of the attendees today, 8 months into a contract management process that is a bit of a pain point and really doesn't seem to be fixing itself. As we continue to swim through this pandemic, more and more questions have come up about contracts. More and more pain points have arisen as people are juggling, developing new relationships to pass that information back and forth within the business in a virtual way. Danielle, how have you seen COVID really impacting the side of legal?
So as I mentioned, I came from the services side. I joined Agiloft well into the throes of the pandemic. So I was still with the services organization in February when I saw the flood of clients that were asking about force majeure, which makes a ton of sense. They realized that they didn't have a system in place to quickly, let alone easily, understand the range of contractual rights and liabilities around unforeseen calamitous events, such as global pandemic. So that's when it really hit me, which it was a little bit of a surprise to me because, I, and I'm sure you do too, kind of live, eat, breathe CLM and process improvement. So it was a little bit of a surprise to me just how many corporate organizations were unable to get their arms around quickly, what their potential liability or exposure was.
No, it's so true. The AmLaw 100 released some information at the beginning of the pandemic just to help corporations get their arms around what was going on. And the majority of them, step one was find your contracts. And so
Yeah.
everyone, it's not just a handful of organizations, it's everyone that was struggling to capture that.
Yep.
So it's been so challenging for a law departments, and I think what it's done is create a lot of momentum now. So we've got problems and we've got process, and there are better ways. People know about the technology tools that are out there. So writing, as everyone's still living through this painful reprocess that they'd had to do with the work from home, leverage that momentum to get you forward. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is really putting together that business case so you can keep moving forward and get a solution in place to help solve this problem so that it's not continuing to be an ongoing pain point. Before we get too far in, we are going to go ahead and just remind attendees, you can always drop questions as we're talking through things. On the right side of your screen, there's a questions box. Feel free to do that. We'll also save 15 minutes at the end for questions too, so plenty of time to ask for any clarification or additional color that you want on the topics today. All right, so business case. Putting together a business case can be really daunting for some. I was in sales for many years, and I worked with a lot of corporate legal departments struggling to be able to put into under clear understanding for their business to get the resources that they needed. Really, though, a business case is just telling the story of your department and really telling the story of a solution to a problem that you have. So thinking about it that simply and just keeping it bucketed into really clear areas can help make a really persuasive business case for your stakeholders. The format is less important so long as your message is clear. You really want it to be clear and written for your target audience. So we're going to talk through describing the situation, your current state of your contract process, identifying the solution available, and quantifying the total value then that solution can bring to the table. All right, so let's describe your current state of contract management. It's the story of the unsafe path, the risk at every turn. And I can't help but think of Florida and like alligators crawling across this boardwalk whenever I see it. And like that's the emotion that you want to evoke in your stakeholders. If we keep contracting in the same way, bad things are going to happen. So to tell that story, we're managing contracts. We have some contracts in place, some process in place, but it's not really working well. Deadlines are getting missed, right? Contracts that should be terminated are auto-renewing. Some that should be auto-renewed are terminating. Things are disorganized. It could be workload as well here. The process is too manual. You don't have enough staff. It's too time-consuming. You know, looking for those force majeure clauses alone. If you were one of those companies who had to figure out what you could get out of, just think of the time you put in there trying to figure that out for each contract that you had. And it's also risk, right? You might be really struggling with risk. Standard terms aren't being used. No one knows what contractual obligations are out there. Tell that story. The stakeholders really need to feel that it's too risky and too costly, because it absolutely is, to continue in this current state for contracts. So the story then begins with the relevant facts, the current process and where it's falling through. Stakeholders here don't take for granted that they already know how contracts move through the process. They might know a portion of that, but they're probably not thinking of it in the holistic way that you are as you put together the solution to the problem here. So tell them the details that are most relevant and make it clear. And be candid about the challenges. It can feel a bit unnerving to write some of this down and send it up the chain to people who have more authority than you do in the day-to-day. But it's, again, really important that they feel and understand where there is actual problems, actual risk on the table, and that it's costing the business money. Providing specific examples here can be really, really helpful as well. Danielle, can you share a bit about how Agiloft customers are putting those specific examples together?
Yeah, I can. So I'm thinking about one Agiloft client in particular. I won't name names, of course. And in the build up to securing a CLM solution and making the case, one of the stakeholders began saving emails anytime there was a contract management failure. You had named a few. Auto renewal without approval, a missed opportunity to terminate. So just the simple process of capturing that information and almost using that as building blocks to make your case, this provides concrete support for the stakeholders that there were real and costly gaps in the contract process that needed a solution. And it also made it pretty easy to quantify exactly what those issues cost the business.
Yeah, and that's so compelling. There are, and we'll talk about later, ROI studies that support the return for implementing a contract management solution. But there is nothing more telling than, hey, we missed this thing and it cost our company exactly this much money, and we are sure it's going to happen again. So include those numbers in there. They really hit home with the audience. Also, as you think about stakeholders here too, it's so important to couch this in terms that they can understand, right? If there are company initiatives or strategic goals set forward, you know, how is the contract process really hampering legal or just the contracting cycle as a whole, hampering hitting those goals? So if we think of revenue growth as a certain one, if your company has set targets for significant revenue growth, an inefficient and slow contract process is not going to help you get there. Mm-hmm. Talk about where those slowdowns are impacting sales, where the contracts that auto-renew that should have been terminated. Again, showing where there are actual cost leakages throughout the entire process that are going to work against that revenue goal.
Right, so this is actually one of the things that's really going to capture the attention at all levels of your organization, CEO and finance and chief revenue officer in particular. The World Commerce and Contracting studies have shown that companies have on average 9% in lost revenue opportunity relative to annual sales due to poor contracting processes. 9%. Just by fixing your CLM process, you can recapture that revenue. And again, that is a powerful motivation for change.
It absolutely is. And it also, you know, there's that hard numbers, but it also takes a toll on sales too to be slowed down, you know, if they're trying to get things in place. So there's a lot of value even for the culture to have good process in place too.
Yep.
All right, so we've described the situation, we put it in terms that stakeholders can understand, tied it to those company goals. Next up is the solution. And it's a bit of a spoiler alert, and I wish I had a drum roll here, but the solution is contract lifecycle management, which I'm sure is why you are all already here. But in all honesty, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about getting technology in place to do the things that it's just too manual to try to do on your own. So you're going to want to set the stage here for what is contract lifecycle management. Again, you are entrenched in this day to day. And again, people might have some idea of what it can do or how it can help, but they're not going to have the full understanding that you do. So spell it out. And it should align here, the benefits that CLM can offer should align with the challenges that you set forth in the first part of the business case. So showing how it can specifically address the challenges that you've identified. And consider who is giving approval on this ultimately. Highlight the benefits for their job role, right? Make it really compelling that there are big positive changes ahead if we can get a CLM tool in place. Back to that example of revenue growth goals, that's where you can highlight, you know, one-click contract creation for sales, automated approval workflows, digital signature. Those are huge features that can help move the needle on hitting growth targets.
Yeah, and I'll jump in. I have sort of a unique perspective here, being a former litigator. I used to litigate commercial and contract disputes for a living. And I would advise my corporate and commercial colleagues on what I considered risky or vague language that could cause an issue down the road. So I was the one saying, you know, let's slow this ship down. Let's really think about the language we're using here and, you know, just kind of be a little bit more slow, steady, and deliberate. When I left practice, I joined a biz dev team and quickly set aside my lawyer cap and just wanted the deal done as quickly as possible. So I completely get the need for speed. The thing is, CLM solutions allow you to be both fast and good. Using standard templates and language with predefined fallbacks limits the risk while speeding up the process. So win-win all around.
Yeah, absolutely. You cannot do on your own what you can do with a CLM tool.
Absolutely not.
So that's, you know, some general examples of CLM, but then you want to talk specifically to what vendor you selected in the process and the one that actually deliver the solution. And that is, of course, the million-dollar question. There are, I think, over 200 players in the market space that do some portion of the contracting process. And so you've got to narrow it down and find the one who's best for you. A few ways you can do that, of course, there's a lot of reports out there. Gartner's one of them that puts forward reports that shows you the leaders in the market space. But then also beyond just the features, can it actually do what we need it to do? There are you know, some other items that you really want to consider too to make sure you're working with a vendor who for the long term is going to best serve your needs. So a few areas to consider if you haven't already made your decision, but customer satisfaction is a huge one. And so this speaks to a product that works well, but then a vendor that also supports its clients using the tool, right? So the solution might look good on a demo and check all your boxes, but if the clients are happy and staying with that vendor for years, that's a good solution. It's telling that they're going to deliver results, they're going to be innovative in what their product can do, and they really are invested in helping clients succeed with their tool. Implementation is another huge one. This can be the really most challenging part for really anyone getting a technology solution in place, but you want to know exactly what to expect here. How much is the total cost end-to-end for implementation? How long is it going to take? The success rates here too, where have other companies gone wrong? And talking that through with your vendor, if they can give you the insight and the support so that you can fully prepare, that's helpful. You got to ask those hard questions though, what can go wrong? That really helps you get out in front of this. And outlining that in the business case too reassures your stakeholders that this will be a success. Mm-hmm. The third point here is really also total cost of ownership too. So this is not only the cost of the basic solution and the implementation, but ongoing resources to support it. So that even can include staffing or additional services. Do you need developers, IT, full-time system admins, those types of things?
Yeah, and I'll chime in here again. Coming from the services world, I'd say that it takes a village to maintain a healthy CLM process, including, for example, review teams, help desks, process engineers, data analysts, etc. There are several organizations that specialize in exactly this. They live and breathe contract lifecycle management, and the support they provide is critical to the ultimate measure of success, which is user adoption.
Yeah, the best tool in the world is not going to help you if no one's using it.
If no one uses it, that's right.
So those are just some additional things to consider. And once you've got the solution, chosen, outline all of that in the business case. The detail you're going to provide varies depending on how you had to go to market. Did you have to issue an RFP? How many vendors did you need to evaluate? And then, reassuring again that your stakeholders, this is the solution for us. And put in about implementation here too, because that's really compelling as well. All right, so with the conclusion of that section of the business case, you really painted this beautiful picture now of what is possible. So we've left the swamp, we are on the safe path. It's a vision to behold, really, for everyone. This is where you want to be. And unfortunately, this isn't the end of the story because everyone wants to know, how much is this going to cost us? What are we looking at here too? And so that's the conclusion, really, of the business case, quantifying the total value of the solution. You need to motivate your stakeholders to get to the safe path. And so make it clear and impossible to miss. This is the most obvious statement you can put forward here. We anticipate that with X investment, contract lifecycle management will help us achieve a return on investment of Y in the first year. And also spell out here too 5-year projections. So it's not just the first year where you see benefit and then it's gonna, you keep paying for a solution that's not really giving you that value. It is an ongoing value add to the business. And so go ahead and put that forward in the business case.
Yeah, and here I like to think of kind of the long-term CLM value as life stages, if you will. So like think toddler, teenage, 30-something. When you're a toddler, the value is just getting the process right, reducing cycle times, reducing turnaround time for your contracting, speeding up that time to contract. That's really critical. When you hit your teenage years, kind of your mid-level maturity, you can start to use the data that you're capturing to inform better processes. And then when you're, in your 30s and 40s, middle age, really have everything firing on all cylinders, you can use those insights from the data that you've been capturing to not only improve your process, but to deliver more value to the business at large.
Absolutely. And so let's look at the actual quantifiable value then from the toddler and maybe heading into the teen years too with contract lifecycle management.
Sure. Is this me?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to walk through some areas where we can see that clear return. We put together an ROI calculator to make it really, really simple. We used industry benchmarks to quantify the value organizations can expect to receive from CLM. And the research we've identified the research has identified 4 primary areas of value: operational efficiencies, value from purchasing, sales operations, and lastly, security and regulatory compliance. I talked a little bit about operational efficiencies when I talked about the teenage years, just getting things done better, faster. And Goldman Sachs estimates that the automation of contract processes can save you about 20% of your budget. And our findings from our customers were pretty consistent with that. Purchasing, which is the efficiencies from streamlining vendor operations, everything from onboarding to managing obligations. Hackett Group study estimates that companies should save 12% of spend. Our customers noted that they were able to identify on average an 8% savings. So, within the ballpark. Sales operations, we've talked about this a little bit with the revenue. This is about reducing the red tape salespeople have to complete before getting an agreement signed. For them, the killer app is one-click contract creation and approval. The world Contracting and Commerce Organization estimates that companies are leaving up to 9% of revenue on the table. We've talked about that before, a huge motivator for change. Our customers were able to positively identify 3% of revenue. Even so, for a $100 million company, $3 million a year is certainly not insignificant. The final and probably least quantifiable value associated with automating CLM are security and regulatory compliance. We asked our customers. The message was that they valued security and compliance of automating much higher than the efficiency benefits I just talked about. In many cases, it was the driver for considering CLM software. And this makes sense given the reputational risks. They're potentially ruinous for an organization. So asking our clients about it, on average, the risk reduction associated with enhanced security was valued at 10% of revenue. So when you build all of those up, that gives you an easy way to put numbers to the value and efficiency that you're creating for your organization as a result of implementing CLM.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. The financial advantages really are amazing when you start to unpack the different areas where they can benefit the company. And when you add that to the specific examples that you gathered for your own department, when things went awry, it's really hard to be able to say, I don't think we should go forward with this. So we're just about to the end then of the story here, and there's one more critical piece that the salesperson in me, or like the trial lawyer in me, it's like your closing argument, it's your closing sales pitch, it's the dramatic finish to your story, but it's the what happens if we don't do anything. So for every day that passes without the solution in place, we lose X dollars in tangible value to the company. And that is really hard to walk away from. The biggest competitor really to any technology solution is not another vendor, it's status quo. And so knowing your business, what will happen if we do nothing is the best way to quantify it. And so it's part of that ROI story, and it really is what's going to keep the stakeholders feeling like there's too much risk here to continue on, and really drive them to go ahead and approve the business case and get you rocking and rolling with CLM. All right, so with that, we are open for questions. We've had a few come in so far. One of them is just around, budgets are tight and restricted for many companies right now in light of the COVID pandemic. So what do you do in that case? Danielle, do you have any immediate thoughts on that, or you want me to tackle that one?
I forgot to give my standard warning at the beginning of this. I have 4 kids at home in Zoom school, and I had myself on mute for a second because they were making a ruckus downstairs. So I apologize. I didn't hear the question. If you could tackle it, that'd be great.
Oh my gosh, no problem. So just around making a business case with COVID, a lot of departments that we're hearing from, we don't have any budget. They froze budgets, and you're not alone with that. But I think that if you've done a nice job of painting the picture and really reminding people of all of the problems that you've had remotely working from home along the way, that still can move the needle on change, because there's always money for critical items, right? So budgets might be frozen for some of the nice to haves, but a contract tool it's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And so painting that picture, there are also, and I believe on an earlier webinar in August, when we actually talked about implementation success, there was an Agiloft client that talked about kicking off their implementation right as COVID was hitting, and how there was no way they could have functioned at that point too. So going back and talking with peers who have rolled things out and being able to share those stories too, add some nice additional color that can help move the needle on budget approval, even when things are tight.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that now that I know what the question is. So going back to the force majeure, for example, that as Ellen said, organizations getting their arms around what their liability was, what their options were for terminating contracts, that wasn't optional. That wasn't a should we, shouldn't we. That was a, oh my gosh, we need to get our act together. And candidly, finding your contracts is at least 50% of the battle when you're implementing a CLM solution and a broader CLM process. So yeah, these are critical, essential components of doing business.
Yeah, I've seen all of the end of year 2020 decorations coming out for the holidays, right? And I feel like for every lawyer and every contract professional, there's gonna be like a force majeure, like ornament or like snow globe or something like that to just put up on the mantle after the unsung hero,
Yeah.
or unsung or not the unsung, but like the lurking bad guy in the corner or something of 2020, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for a great discussion, Danielle. And for our attendees, thanks for your time here too. If there are further questions, or if you want to talk through the ROI calculator, or actually putting together your specific business case for contract lifecycle management, feel free to reach out to us and to Agiloft for more support to do that. We've got more than enough resources to help you be successful here.
Thanks, Ellen, and thanks everyone. Hope everyone has happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks so much.